So now, after I have successfully installed the Tyflow plugin, the icon of the Tyflow will appear here. So the bottom here is here Tyflow. In order to create this Tyflow, it looks similar like to particle system, the PF source here. So just drag the icon here. Let's zoom a bit. We can see if you have already worked or have seen the particle system to this max. If you start to scroll here, you're going to see some particles flow away, but not the case with the Tyflow, because you need to tell it which icon or which object to emit particles. So this is the Tyflow. You can go here to settings. You can see that we have a couple of settings here that we have a look at most of them later. To open the Tyflow editor, you can just click here and the Tyflow will appear there. So okay, let's zoom and put this one here. We maybe just to have more space. So in order to start, we need to I say I want to create. Yeah, we need to give birth. Like here, this is why it is called birth. To give birth to particles, we need some particles. We can just start with birth. So this is the birth. Birth. All of those green. You can see that green are colored the same way because they do the same thing, which is birth, giving birth to particles. You can have here birth. We have birth, burst, and flow, fluid, if you are using, and we have point, PRT, birth PRT, if you have particles here that you have brought from other software, like you can export particles from real flow and convert them to particle and come here to load them. We have birth surface and we have birth objects, which is that the one that we are going to use, and we have the ordinary birth, which just only give particle. But we still can see that we don't have particle because we need to tell it the place. So the place that the particle should be emitted from. Because here we have only a birth without object. If we have, like here we have birth object, we need to pick the object that's going to emit the particle. It's not that this is the birth surface, because this birth object is a bit different, so we don't mix those. So if you get birth surface here, and let's create maybe a sphere, just this, and let's start with this is the easiest one, but let's start with this birth surface and just pick this surface. Now you can see that this object is really emitting particles. If we come here and hide this object, we can see that the particles are created, but they are not moving because they don't have a force affecting them. Okay, we can maybe just bring the object, and you can see that the particles are following the object that you are moving. We go here and hide the object because we don't need, and you can see that the particles are generated from the object. So this is the birth surface, and you can here like say you want the particles to be generated from all the vertices, and we can like this is why when we need to work with the Explorer to select the object here, even it is hidden, you can select it and you can go here and change. If we start to increase the segmentation, we can see that the particles are increasing because they are depending on the vertices. We can say all faces, so now the particles are generated from the faces and not the vertices, and so on. You can play here with all the settings to see. Okay, so this is the birth surface. Now we have the ordinary birth, which is birth. Okay, we need to tell it the position because we don't have like a location. So we have position here. We say position object or position icon. So here we can say anything. Let's go for position icon. Now we can go create the standard icon that we know. So go to helpers here, and you go to Tyflow, and you say Tyflow icon, and you can create the icon and position it, let's say like this. Okay, let's have something quite like this. Okay, so this is the position icon. Now we can go here and say pick the position. Now we can see that we have here something. We have particles are generated on the icon. We can increase the amount, like let's go to 1000. You can see the amount of the particles. So these particles are created from 0 to 100. It creates 2000 particles. So we can say in 10 frames create 2000 particles. So in 10 frames it generates 2000 particles. So this is what it means, the start and the end. So it means the time it needs to create the amount given here. So let's go maybe for 50. Okay, so we need to move it. So keep this aside. Before we do anything else, you can see that we are seeing here dots. These dots are displayed from the display, let's say the display icon here. We can click here to enable or disable. So this is enable, this is disable. We can even change the way of displaying things to us. This is by default is set to small dots. We can come to large dots here. So you can see large dots, and you can come to text and sprites, and you can go to geometry. Of course, we can use geometry, which is important. If you have any geo that you want to emit from here, let's say we want to throw balls. Let's say boxes. Let's go for boxes here. So this box here. Okay, let's make it a real box like 20, 20, 20. Okay, we got a box here. Maybe it's too big. Let's go. Leave it too big so we can deal with it. Now we want to emit this box from here. So instead of emitting like dots here, we want to emit boxes. So here we need to add the object. Let's go here. We need to add the shape. Give it a shape here. So now we got the shape here. We need to add a shape to be emitted instead of emitting the particles. Okay. The shape we need to say, let's say I want new, not triangle, but I want to bring my own shape. Let's delete, remove here, and say add selected. Now we got all the boxes generated together. You can see all the boxes. We can come here and enable us to scale. So we scale it to like 10. So now we are generating 2000 boxes. Just simply, we have not used a lot, just one. This is the birth to give to generate particles. This is where to generate particles. So we can say we want to generate particles from the icon, or if you want to generate particles from an object, you can just combine those and say birth surface and pick the surface that you want to generate. If you want to give your particles a shape, use a shape node here. In some way we can say I want to say nodes here. Let's go and reduce so we can see them. 2000. Okay, now we want to make those boxes move. In order to move, we need the force. That's easy to understand. In order to make something move, you need to give it some force. You need to give it some speed. We got speed here. If we go here, you can just click here and press tab to search if you know the name. You can say it is speed. We can try and get speed. Okay, let's delete. Put your mouse here. If you see a red line, it means that anything you are picking from is going to replace the one you are selecting. But if you put your mouse here, then you click tab, you are going to add here. So we search for speed, for example, and give speed. The order is something important. So it's something important, not all the time, but you should keep this in mind that the order is important. Now we can see that we got movement here. If we go like click, we can get movement of the particles. Of course, you can create any type of object here. If we have an animated object, maybe let's try to animate this. Okay. Let's add before. Let's go and give it maybe some segments. Press F4. Let's try something. Okay, something else, and add. It's called stretch or squash. Squeeze stretch. It is called stretch, not like mine. Let's enable auto key and let's go here. Okay, real time 1. Okay, 30. Let's work with 30. Let's go to set filter. No, so auto keys, key filters, and say custom, or say everything. We want everything to be recorded for the animation. Let's give it here. Let's say okay. Let's go like maybe to 10 and try something quite like this. So here, make it like 0, 0, and let's try go here, make it maybe like, yeah, maybe something like this. Okay. Maybe we can go here and let's say, if we can say animated geometry, maybe. You can see that you can create a lot of cool things just easily. So it's going to move, and you can also continue. Let's come here and have fun. I like to have fun. Let's just pick shift and drag. Maybe to get something like boom, boom, boom. Of course, we can just open the graph editor and say cycle, but I don't want to break your head like so much. I'm just duplicating, so we get some soft movement here. It's really funny to look at. So you can see how easy to deal with Tyflow, with how the need to understand under the hood a lot. You just need to understand that you need to give birth to the particles. You need to position where to emit. You need to give them a force in order to make them work or to interact with you. You need to give them a shape if you need, and not the ordinary shape. The shape can be added and can be animated, as you can see here, of course. Now we need to give it a force, because now they are having a speed, but there is no force to affect them, like the most important force in our world, which is gravity. We can't live without gravity because we are going to flow. So we need a force, which is called here a force, just a force. Okay, click and drag the force here. By default, there is no force. You need either to go here and create the old way of doing stuff, go here to forces and create a gravity and put it here. Then you click pick and you pick the gravity, and is going to affect the particles. But this is the old way of doing this kind of stuff, because here we got built-in gravity, and you can just add your gravity here, which is going, so it's a lot strong, okay, which is going to affect the particles. We need to send the particles this direction. It's like shooting. Let's hide this one, it's in the way. Let's put this back a bit. Okay, let's change the color. It looks like ugly. Let's go for greenish. and say okay. Now we have changed the color. So this is where you can change the color of visual. This is not the material, this is that the way of I'm always having hard time to pronounce that, visualizing things. Okay, I'm sorry. So let's go to false here and say, because it is set to random. Random, it means all directions. So we can say maybe this one is like the X or the Y. How to figure this out? You can try. Of course, you can see here this one, which is the Y. I think it is the Y here that we are looking for, but you can try. It doesn't hurt. So go, let's say Y, and you can see that it's indeed throwing them at the direction of the Y, but it is a bit weaker. It's not that high. Let's increase the magnitude a bit. Of course, it is interacting with me in real time, which is very, very handy. Okay. So I'm here. I'm changing the value. It's recalculating everything from here and shows me the result in no time. So we can come here. Let's increase this one a bit higher and go. And we are shooting moving boxes. Of course, they are moving. You can see, it's hard to see, but they are moving. You can use flies, use any kind of insects that you will make. You make them to fly. Okay. So this is the most important stuffs here. And if you go to gravity, we got here built-in gravity, and we got built-in wind. You can see that here. Now it is written gravity, which tells you with how the need to click that the gravity is interacting. You can add wind here. You just click. You can see here now gravity plus wind, and so on. We have another wind here, and we have some forces. Let's add randomness a bit. Let's go like 0.1, 0.1, and 0.1 here. So we add some kind of wind. I think it's too much. Let's go 0.01. We can add some noise here. Let's say turbulence noise, and give it 0.1. So we add some noise here. Now let's say if we want to put a ground here where the particles should interact with, we just come here and create a box. Of course, it is better to create a box instead of creating a plane without a dimension. Okay, and also it is advised that you add some segmentation, not too much, but some segmentation. So when the plugin calculates the collision, if the particles are going to fall here, it's going to calculate the collision only on this part and not on the whole surface like it is like this. It's going to calculate the whole surface, which make it a bit harder for it, but just 3 or so are going to do very well. Okay. Of course, nothing will happen here because we need to tell Tyflow that this is a geometry that you need to respect. And in order to do so, we got here the yellow one, which is the test. You need to test something. If something happens, do so. If something happens, do so. These are your tests, which is very, very handy and very important. This is your tests are here in yellow. The green are, as you know, the birth. And you can say like the operator you got here, that the blue ones are the force and the speed and all those kind of things that impact the way your particles behave. So you can say birth and behavior, and this one, the yellow one, is the test that you need. We add a collision here. Let's get a collision. Okay. Until pick this one. So now the particles are going. Let's press F4 so we can see. Now you can see that the particles are going to interact with the surface. Of course, you can make it bigger. Let's make it like this. You can make it bigger. Okay. Now, in all of those tests here, it's going to give you like a circle here, which is very good. It means that if this test occurs, or if this test is true, do something else. The easiest was, we want to change the color. Okay, let's you can just shift and click to create one, or you can just come here and look for the display. This is the easiest way. Let's change the color to something else. Okay, and let's plug this. So this is very easy to understand. We give birth and so on, you know all the story now. Now we tell Tyflow, when the collision happens, send the data to the next event. That's all what we are saying, and that's all what it requires to do a lot of things. If the collision happens, just send the event here. And you can see now we are getting dots. Why? Because the display is set to small dots. And remember, if we do a render now, nothing will show up. If we do an render, we got nothing. Why? Because this is only, at the moment, these are only particles and not our geometry. So let's say display those particles as geometry. So we are getting our geometry back from the shape. So you may say, but this is a new event. Yes, it is a new event, and some of the nodes here are inherited. Of course, are inherited. There is no need. There is no need to copy all things to here. The most important features that are inherited is this arm, the speed, the scale. You can see that we got the same scale, and we got the shape. We got the same shape. We got the same scale and the same speed. And you can see that the force is not inherited. Now our particles are flying. If we increase, if you press Ctrl Alt and you hold your right mouse button and you click here and drag, you can increase your timeline. Let's go to 2. Or of course you can come here and just set it manually, like length 2000 here, and say okay. Are flying in the air. So we need to create another force here. Let's say force. And we are getting a force. Let's add gravity, just 0.1. Now we are seeing that, what is happening? We are seeing that the particles are going through our ground. Why? Because we need to give it a collision. Let's go and add another collision, shift and drag to say, to define that the collision is happening now. And of course we can now get another event. When the collision is happening again, it means when the first collision happens, let's decrease this one like to 0.05, so we give it more time so to fly around before it falls. Okay, let's make this longer to have fun, something quite like this. And you can see the successful things of events. So now the first collision, we change the color to purple. Let's make this the second collision, shift and drag. Let's make this unique. You can see it is written in italic, which means they are instances. Let's make it unique, or just create another one here and change the color to yellow and put it here. Of course it's going to show geometry because it was already here, or make sure it is geometry. Now, when the second collision happens, they are going to turn to yellow. And again, they are flying because we need the force. So shift and drag here to get our force back, and they are going through. We need also to another collision here. Okay? So without anything, we have just copy and paste, you create something very cool. The second paste, of course. This only a quick example of what you can do. Okay? It doesn't have to be like collision. This is just the way of thinking under this editor. It is just, if something happens, do something, and we got a lot of tests here. It's only not only the collision, but we can have anything else that we are going to do in the next video.